Tech for Good, fascinating topic. And we have heard from the panelists before this that financial inclusion, education, healthcare are one of the big and up-and-coming sectors that people should be focusing on. And all of you are working on at least one of those areas. So I think we will dive right into it. So why don't we start off with each one of you explaining your work briefly, and then we'll move on to the discussion. Umesh, you want to go first?
So we at Hippocampus run a network of preschools and schools in rural India. And these are in small villages with a population of 5,000-6,000 people. And these centers are all internet enabled, and a lot of work we do is tech enabled.
So I run a non-profit organization. It does ed technology, provides content that's customizable, gives you data in real time, and recommends for you things that your student can do next to learn more. It's all free.
Okay. Yeah. Radha?
I'm Radha Basu, and I'm CEO of iMerit. We're a for-profit, on-demand digital data services company. So you can look at it and say, well, that's like many technology companies and startups. The difference is that along with working in machine learning or data analytics and those areas, 85% of our employees are people, young men and women from marginalized, particularly young women from marginalized backgrounds. And we actually skill them to be able to work in these areas for global customers.
Okay.
So that's iMerit.
So clearly technology has been a huge enabler for your work so far, right? So let me ask you this. So if you don't have access to technology, right, what would you have done differently?
We would not have dreamed to do it on such a big scale. Currently, we work in 280 villages with a dream to do this in 5,000 villages in the next decade. If we did not have technology, we would not have had the power to dream.
So in our case, if we didn't have technology, we couldn't change, we couldn't even dare to change the educational systems, starting with the US,
Right.
right? I mean, it's a monopoly, basically, owned by publishers. And it costs a lot of money, and it leaves children out.
Right.
So if we didn't have technology, we couldn't possibly democratize it. Because basically, when you think about it, it's always the 5,000 concepts you need to learn in math and science till you finish high school. It's the same across the whole world.
Right. Okay.
And technology enabled us to do a lot of that.
Right. So Radha, let me ask you this, seeing as you work with, the nature of your work, how would the lives of the people you serve be different if there was no technology that you could access?
Yeah, we talked about this before. Technology is so core. 90% of our customers are global, mainly US, and the customers are all either shared economy like Ubers or technology companies like YouTube or eBay or Getty Images. So if we didn't have the technology platforms to both skill the people and to be able to do the client digital data services, then these people would not have the social impact. And what does that mean? So if you take some of the young women that we work with, who may be either Muslim women or tribal or insurgent youth, they end up earning probably anywhere from about 4 to 10 times their family income. And it's not just financial, it's the digital literacy, it's being part of the digital economy. It determines when they get married, whether other people from their village participate. It really is, can they bring other services, clean water, education? Can they have rural schools with Hippocampus on them?
Fair enough.
So it really changes the fiber. And I think for India looking forward, the inclusion of these young people into not just being able to do some low-level labor, but into the broad digital economy, for them to be at surge, that is what creates the large business potential in India.
Okay. Umesh, seeing that you work with kids in rural India, so how different would their lives be if you weren't doing what Hippocampus is doing right now?
You know, we do a lot of work with teachers and children, and if Hippocampus was not there, many of these people would land up going to poorly run government schools, and they would tend to have a very low quality of education. Uh, Therefore, not changing anything in their life. What's happening today with something like Hippocampus coming in there? Starting with small innovations like where we started going to teachers and giving them all a tablet with access to the internet. Now, these women had never seen tablets before. They had small Nokia phones, and we were giving them an Android tablet, and they were using this tablet not just to run their centers more efficiently, but they were using these tablets to communicate to the head office on things they wanted, questions they had. They were being completely in sync with what they could do with the tablet. They were all given WhatsApp, and I don't know, many of you might have noticed that recently Wikipedia launched a WhatsApp number, right? Now they're able to actually go out and use the WhatsApp to learn more about things and share it. What this also did is you suddenly had parents who came in and saw these women using tablets and said, can our children also use tablets and the internet? And now you have parents coming to our teachers and coming to Hippocampus and saying, can my 4.5, 5-year-old child get access to tablets and do things? So the power of what we are doing and the power it has got to transform what will happen in this country a decade from now is just mind-boggling.
Okay, fair enough. And this is a question for anybody, any one of you can answer. Taking a step back, how have social enterprises evolved over the last year since you started off, and how has technology enabled it to do so? And do you find that there are more social enterprises now because of technology, and in general, how has the whole space evolved over the past few years?
I think a lot of what has happened in the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years, particularly, is that people are starting to think of social enterprises as being able to scale as large as any enterprise out there. And that is a huge change, because whether it's investors, like what we call impact investors, in for-profit organizations, we've known in the past of large nonprofits like a CARE or Save the Children and people like that. But now to be able to take social enterprises and have the impact investing and look at really scaling them. I think that is, people are actually starting to ask those questions. How can you scale? Starting something is one step and getting the initial funding, but scaling it large is really so much of detailed systems level work. And investors as well as enterprises, entrepreneurs are investing in that, because that is the way you get, if we want to employ 10,000 people and build a $100 million or $200 million business, that requires systems level work and the technology for that and the technology platform to be able to do that. And that investment is happening, and that is the change, I would say, over the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, I'd like to add to that by saying that the social sector is really moving up in technology, is giving voice to many people. That was not actually possible earlier, because you had the the newspapers or the publishers or the radios that kind of controlled a lot of what the voice was going out there. Now everyone can actually start creating their own, because technology has enabled people.
Right.
And I think that's the direction that we all are very passionate about, because we want to make sure everybody can say something that they want to say. And maybe that one sentence is the thing that's going to change many lives.
I would like to add one thing here, right? When you go to a young girl today in the villages of Karnataka, right, which is slightly more well-off than Bengal might be, and you ask this young girl, if you're looking for a job, where do you go looking for a job? And she'll tell you, I go to the internet cafe and I go and look at quicker.com or naukri.com.
Yeah.
So what we actually are doing today, we don't realize it, but 65% of India is actually depending on what we all do in cities like Bangalore
Right.
to change their lives. and the pace is just really, really quick. So what you see happening in Bangalore happens in a village 18 months from now, and that will get quicker and quicker.
Okay.
You know
Can I
what?
add something? You asked the question, what's happening?
Yes.
I think it's also getting into the capital markets. So one of the first public benefit corporations in the US that actually went public was Etsy. And so it's public on NASDAQ. And so it's a social enterprise.
Right.
It's kind of almost an oxymoron, but it's a social enterprise that's going public on NASDAQ. And we at iMerit have actually, and people said, why are you doing this? But we actually created stock options and put them in a trust for the people, our employees below poverty level. It's the first time it was done. People said, well, what's the benefit because you're a social enterprise? But then when you see an Etsy going public, you realize that the value creation for these people, even at the financial level, that's a real change that's happening. So these things start to become much more linking, this technology links social benefit with the capital markets. And I think that is a major change that's happening.
Okay. So clearly, technology is a huge enabler for social enterprise, more so than probably anything else. And so a quick question, if you want to take it as a poll, or if you want to elaborate, up to you. Something like free basics, good or bad, or is there a gray area?
You want just the
Just
poll?
yeah, just the
Sure.
poll.
Yeah. I think unnecessary.
Okay.
I won't say good or bad, unnecessary.
Neeru?
I don't even know
I
why
think-
they did that. So
Yeah. For me, free internet, good.
Okay.
Right? Whether it's free basics or Facebook basics, I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough. So, what would you say is a challenge that technology presents in your day-to-day work?
what challenges?
What challenges? Yes. I mean, it's clearly an enabler,
Yeah.
but where do you find yourself pulling your hair? You know what?
So when we started our project, my co-founder, Murugan Pal, who's since passed away from ALS, was brilliant. But he said to me, Neeru, do you realize that technology is a bottomless pit? It just never gets done. And, you know, that is a huge challenge. From first trying to make everything, providing content for K-12, so that you had everything you would need to learn the 5,000 concepts,
Right.
to going to now where we are. First step was making it customizable. Then you had to build that capability. And we had to basically either do it ourselves, being a nonprofit, or actually depend on open source. So this is where, you know, this is where our philosophy of being open is very important, so that everyone
Right.
else doesn't have to start from zero. They can start building from a system that we've created, and that people can start using that to do their own creations, is what's happened. So that this technology, the ever-changing role of technology is a huge issue.
Right.
The second is training of the people that use it is tremendously huge, like teachers for us. Kids do it themselves. We don't have to worry about them. But teachers, for sure, we have to start training them.
So how do you get around an issue like that?
How do we get around to them? You know, we try to be innovative,
Invest more money,
more technology,
more
the
investment into more
bottomless
technology.
pit.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Umesh
for us,
Malhotra.
I agree with some of the points she made. The beauty and the risk of technology is, I think it's like unleashing a tiger.
Yeah.
And what we see with our users, which are the teachers, these are all 12th class women staying in villages. Once they've got used to using it, they come back and say, why aren't you doing even this on the phone?
Yeah.
Why are you stopping at just doing this? So they start giving us these demands, and they are actually defining the ecosystem. And then I have my tech team who's like, these guys are asking just too many questions. So, which is, I think, the good part or the bad part.
Fair enough. So, yeah,
the
Radha.
term technology is very broad. It goes from anything from Elon Musk's cars, Teslas, to mobile phones to things.
Right.
When we look at different kinds of technology, so we stitch together many technologies. So it could be We've skilled about 55,000 young men and women, and 82% of them are in IT-related jobs. So if we look at the skilling part of it, then the ability to be able to have curriculum that's on a Udemy, or it's, could be mass curriculum, it could be a Wharton e-marketing, or it could be something that someone's developing, simply learns. Having access to that and giving that access in areas where you don't have access. So having disconnected operations. So having the, maybe BeagleBone kinds of boxes that can do that. It can range from that to a technology platform that can be built with machine learning and machine automation. And this is something I'd ask startups over here to look at. So looking at how can you systemize and build large data analytics on platforms. So if we had some of that platforms available, we wouldn't have to build that ourselves. And that's how a lot of e-tailers are going, data analytics is going, social media is going, to have the analytics around that. And machine learning or machine automation, sort of computer vision being a part of it, working with humans who are skilled to work that way. Now, if you had that platform, and I know this is kind of a technical answer, but if we had that platform to build large-scale data analytics, social enterprises, then maybe we could employ 10,000 people to do that and become the data analytics capital of the world, you know? That's maybe where outsourcing is going.
Okay. So I'm glad you brought that up, Radha, because that was actually going to be my last question. I think we have time for one more question. Maybe Umesh and Neeru can jump in. And this is, we have heard over the last couple of days that whoever is an aspiring entrepreneur needs to come up with the right product or service so that it becomes marketable and you can actually realistically scale it up and make money off of it. So what would you say is a gap in technology that you experience in your day-to-day that you think should be filled? Like machine learning is a great example. So in your fields of work, what would you say that is? That would be a great idea for people who want to act, who are looking for the next idea to start their next venture.
So in our case, like Radha said, that the data and the machine learning part, which is actually relatively new fields, are very difficult for us to kind of. We get data from Google Analytics, but that's not enough because we need granular data on what the child is learning, not just on the concept, but actually on which questions missing, why they're missing, their misconceptions and understanding, what did they not know at the back. So we have the system that we built. We were in a fortunate position to be able to build a system over the last 9 years. But what we need is more people jumping in and kind of saying, we'll build on top of your system, whether it's machine learning, whether it's data visualization, because we do have to go to Google's or the Amazons or whatever people are coming in, or build it ourselves.
Okay. Umesh?
So I have a reverse request, which is to get technology people to look at in India outside the metro.
Yep.
And try to make things simple. I'll give you an example. I came across an entrepreneur who came to me with a business idea saying that I'm going to give tablets to Kirana stores in villages, which will have access only to Flipkart and Amazon. And the villager can go to the Kirana store, choose what he wants to buy, let's say an ironing box, pay 2,000 rupees to the Kirana store, and then that box is delivered to the Kirana store and distributes it. So that's the power of change which is happening, because they watch the same television as we do. They're influenced by exactly the same thing, and they aspire for the same, and they will use what is given to them. So don't limit yourself to think of just 10% of rich India. Think of a much larger world who over a period of time will be ready for using some of the things you're developing right now for Bangalore City or London.
Great.
I would add to that, that if you look at you say here, Fortune 500, Global 2000, those companies basically serviced 800 million people, at the most 700 to 800 million people. The next 2 or 3 billion are wide open. And if there is a country, there are a set of entrepreneurs that can go after that. So exactly what you're saying, it's not Bangalore Metro, It's not the youngster startups just here. It's not Pune, it's not Hyderabad alone. It is the broader India, and looking at how technology can bring those people into the economy can actually make for business for everybody.
Okay.
So that would be it would be like invent technologies for that.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we have run out of time. That's a great note to end the session. Thanks, Umesh, Neeru, and Radha. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.